I rewatched the infrared destiny conversation, the second one, the second time they talked, when it was like cleaner and like more calm and good faith, and Haas was not standing up in his like alpha male posturing and like yelling at Destiny and stuff. Um, it was actually an interesting discussion to listen to, and I feel like that would go for like anyone, regardless of your political opinions, because they started it with like philosophical mining, basically like mining into philosophical content. And one thing that they touched on there was they were talking about like it was kind of a derivative of when Haas debated Vosh, and he kept asking him like what defines words. I think that was it, unless it was like a Vosh fan, possibly. But like, what gives something its definition? And that's an interesting topic to focus on, I think, because I think the answer is a little bit more complicated than we're trained to sort of think of things as. Like, I'm so sick of all of the labeling and stuff, but the specific example that Destiny and Infrared discussed was they were talking about water. And Destiny said, like, yeah, socialism and capitalism are like human concepts. So, like, without humanity, those would just cease to exist. But water is like a exterior substance. So, like, without humanity, there would still be water. But my complicating factor here, which is like a little bit different from what Haas said, but maybe it's like similar to what he was trying to get at, is that actually, if humanity disappeared, there wouldn't be quote unquote water, because our concept of what water means and the actual thing itself in the world are two different things. So you actually need humanity to exist in order to have all of our definitions and interpretations of reality. And that gets at like a more fundamental point of my perspective philosophically on things that I regrettably can't articulate in full detail here right now, but once it's like fully crystallized and I can like write it out, I think I kind of want to do an episode of just like deconstructing things like that and really going through my philosophical frameworks and methodologies and perspective on the world, because like it has and honestly, for as much as I sort of despise most like interpretations of psychoanalysis and everything, I think this is a good insight to draw out of Lacan, because he draws out the distinction of the word we use to describe a thing and the thing itself, which is sometimes described as like a division between being and meaning. And the way that Lacan describes it is basically like, as an object enters the symbolic order to gain its subjectivation, its subjectivity, um, you sacrifice some of your being for meaning. And so there's a gap. There is a gap. That is a perfect word to describe it. Between the meanings we give things and the things themselves. And that is a fundamental detail. That's a fundamental feature of the world in order to understand it, I think. That is a very crucial point to get at. The fact that you can't reduce the substance of a thing to the word and the meaning that we symbolically give it as a culture at any given moment. And that gets at my problem with the broader way that honestly literally in my school, in my class, they were teaching Lacan, because he was basically teaching it as like the symbolic order is just reality. Like that's like he was conflating the symbolic and the ontological, basically. Like Lacan's symbolic is the quote unquote real world, when that is like such a conflation, and it misses the fact that Lacan also has a concept literally called the real, and it's not that. Like it's called the symbolic for a fucking reason. Like it's not the real world. You can't just simp into society like that and just be like, yeah, whatever society says, that's just truth. Like that's not the point. Like literally that is not the point. But yeah, it makes me so angry. And like there's a lot of reasons why it makes me mad, but specifically it's like I'm in school with all of these kids, and I picture it as like they're going to be out there in the real world in like administrative, like professional managerial positions, running systems of power, like literally intricated as managers within societal structures. So I don't want these people who think like this to be doing that, because then nothing's going to change. It's just society is just going to reproduce itself. And I feel like if you have a more critical engagement with psychoanalytic theory and things like that, you realize that there's actually a point of intervention where you can change things like that more drastically than just having all of the correct woke opinions about fucking race and gender issues and shit. Like seriously, like there is a point of intervention you can access where you can say, no, I don't want to just inherit the symbolic order, completely allow myself to be entirely inculcated and subjectivated into it as it is in our contingent historical moment, because he doesn't even get to the fact that even these structures in these structuralist theories are, in a broader sense, contingent products of a world historical material reality that is constantly in a state of flux and change. None of it is set in stone at all. It's all contingent. They don't even get into that radical historicism. It literally isn't covered at all. It's literally not covered anywhere in the whole fucking theory class. It's literally like they literally don't even touch on that. They don't even show you that there's broader, different concepts of these psychoanalytic things, like Deleuze and Guattari's concept of desire, for example. I had to bring that up because they don't teach it in the fucking class. It's crazy. And then I'll get told in another class, like, oh, these political biases, like, oh, you're not presenting the opposite side. It's like, yeah, neither does the curriculum. Like, when are people going to realize the fact that just because an opinion or a perspective was handed down to you and molded by an institution, that doesn't make it true. that doesn't automatically give it truth value. That doesn't make it real. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And the fact that like there's no such thing as so-called unbiased information. And if you actually engage with any kind of theory beyond like typical Anglo box nonsense, like if you actually engage with Gramsci, for example, you get that fundamental insight of the fact that, oh, the opinions that are commonly held in a culture are held together by a structural hegemony between fucking societal structures of power. And there's no objective ideology. It's literally a product of power. Like, it's so frustrating because you hear these people always love to virtue signal to reality, quote unquote reality, as if we all just have this like they appeal to the unconscious understanding of what that word is supposed to mean in our culture, of course, but like everyone also has a more conscious subjective opinion of what that means. Like there is no concrete objective purely scientifically, empirically provable reality across all dimensions of fucking, like, theology, like, religion, religious opinion, political opinion, fucking culture. Different cultures have different interpretations of reality itself. Economic structures and things like that. You can have different viewpoints on them. Like, there is no single truth. That's just not a thing, and it really honestly never was a thing. Even when everybody was inculcated in the same sovereign society dominant order where you have to listen to what the king tells you or else he'll cut your head off, and fucking everyone believes that God is literally controlling everything like a fucking puppet. Even back then, that wasn't the objective truth. It literally wasn't. Like, you have to understand that there's no such thing as a single truth. There's no such thing as an objective perspective on reality. It's all subjected to interpretations that are mediated by structures of fucking power. So you can't just appeal to reality as if we all know what that is and share this common view of what that means. Because all you're doing when you do that is appealing to the power structures that already exist and are subjectivating people as they already have been. That's literally all you're doing. But when you appeal to fucking quote unquote reality like that, you're appealing to the meanings and interpretations of things as they've already been subjectively formed. That's not the same thing as objective reality. And so, like, I've honestly gotten, like, slightly off track. Like, I'm just following wherever the thought pattern is leading me. But it's like, these things make me so frustrated. They literally make me so frustrated. Because there's a deeper level of theoretical engagement that you have to get into. And that's more interesting to talk about than just striving, like, with this weak neoliberal nostalgia for some era where we all were just told the same shit, so we all believed the same shit, and it was known as quote-unquote objective, unbiased politics. There's never been such thing as fucking unbiased politics. That's the point of politics. It's a power struggle. That's what real politics is. Seriously. And it's funny because you can get that insight if you just read about Lacan. Like, you literally can learn this if you read that in an honest, critical engagement. The symbolic order is not the objective reality of the world. It's the subjectivation of people into the fucking socio-historically contingent cultural context that they're in. That's what it is. It's not real. As opposed to the imaginary realm. Like seriously, it's so frustrating that throughout all of these classes, he didn't explain that to us once. When that's really what it is. That's really what the theory says. But it's just... I hope you can see my frustration, and I hope I'm not, like, totally not making sense. But yeah, the definition that we culturally, symbolically give to a thing isn't what the thing is in reality. That's my point. There's a separation, there's a gap between them, always. And that's part of what I was talking about with, I don't know their name. The guest 2 weeks ago, as far as the inherent flaws in communication and language. That's literally part of why that is because is like the whole reason why we can have different meanings of the same word is because there's a difference between the word and the thing we're describing. That's the whole, like, literally that's the whole reason. That is one of the most fundamentally important insights as far as psychoanalysis goes for literary theory. It really is. Just that simple fact. But it's like, it's not even explained to us that way in school. And it's so frustrating. It's like, why? Why?